Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joe Casabona. This is my coworker, Bill No H? Oh, yeah.
2 years we've known each other.
Crazy.
Yeah.
To introduce myself, I am a web developer, a writer, a nerd. I'm a nerd in like the technology, computer, and Star Wars sense. I'm also a Yankee fan, which I hope is okay around here because it's great. I'm very Yankees. I gave a talk in Philly. I got booed a lot for that. I'm going to shamelessly promote something right now and hopefully not for the rest of the talk. I have a book coming out in December. It's called Responsive Design in WordPress. It is all about how to do responsive design with WordPress themes. If you want to check that out, you can go to rwdwp.com, click on the pre-order link, put in the code for 35% off the book. I'm really excited about it. I think it's pretty good. All right, and then all of my contact information is on the bottom there. Casabona.org is my website, jcasabona is my Twitter handle, and then my slides and stuff like that. So.
All right. And I'm Filler. I'm at Twitter at Filler. I'm on the web at filler.com. My Facebook is Filler. Noticing a trend here. I'm really original, sorry. I'm a systems administrator and programmer at the University of Scranton. I'm also the co-founder and director of technology, which means I like to push buttons on computers, for Solve the Net. And I'm a lover of WordPress. I have to say, you guys have to know how much we love you because we could be at WordCamp Europe today, which is in the Netherlands. But we chose to be here, so we love you guys.
There was no chance of us going.
No, there really wasn't. I don't have that kind of money. I'm sorry. So here we are, and not that it's second rate or anything, because we love to talk to you guys about WordPress. We started doing the Northeast PA WordPress meetup in February. So we're going on 10 months now, 8, 9 months, 10 months, somewhere around there. And did it because we love talking about WordPress, learning about WordPress, and we've had a good time so far. So I'm going to hand it over to Joe to talk about customizing WordPress.
All right, customizing WordPress themes. How many of you have some kind of coding experience here? All right, splendid. We'll go slow. All right. So, first of all, a theme, just a primer, okay? So a lot of you, I assume, use WordPress or want to use WordPress. A theme is the way that you customize the look, feel, and layout of your site. Okay, so, that's the definition right from the codex. Provides control over the look and presentation of the material on your website, okay? There's themes and then there's plugins. We won't talk about plugins today, but that's how you add functionality to your website. I got that definition from the codex, codex.wordpress.org. If you ever do get into coding WordPress themes or modifying WordPress themes, the codex is your best friend. Everything you need to know about WordPress development is in the codex. So, we're going to talk about the important files of a WordPress theme today. Okay, I'll try not to be too technical, and if you have any questions at any point, feel free to shout them out. Okay. Tip, if you do start WordPress development, don't modify the core. Those are the files that you download. So go to wordpress.org, download those files, don't modify those files. You're going to have a bad time if you do. Alright, so possibly the most important file in the theme, it has nothing to do with the display, but it's style.css. Okay, so the reason this is so important is because it includes the theme definition. It tells WordPress that you have a theme that you want to use. Okay, so this is the code block for my book. I created a fictitious site called MillenniumFlights.com. They fly you all over the galaxy in less than 12 parsecs. It's not, it's a distance, right? When you're working with, how many of you have done CSS before? CSS, HTML, a little bit? Okay. So, with CSS, or the style.css file, there are some common classes that you should keep in mind. You can go to that link. WordPress generates its own CSS classes. So if you want to style them, just go to that link, check out what's there. It's like align left, align right for images and things like that. Okay? And a tip for the style.css file. I know a lot of people like to use more than one file for their CSS. I would strongly recommend, first of all, how many of you know what responsive web design is? I should really define that. Okay, so responsive web design, perfect. Responsive web design is when your website adapts to the screen that it's being viewed on. Okay, so you view Casabona.org on a desktop and you view Casabona.org on your smartphone, it's going to be the same site, but the content's going to be displayed differently because the screen is small. Okay, so your site adapts or responds to the screen it's being viewed on. Okay, but it's more than that. And my tip for responsive web design here is put all your CSS in one file, because if you have more than one file, the mobile browser is going to have to make multiple calls or requests. It increases the size of your web page, and it takes the web page longer to download. A study showed that a user will abandon a website if it takes more than 5 seconds to load, like some astronomical amount, like 78%. All right. So even if you're just going to download a theme, make sure that these things are the developer kept these things in mind, because if your website takes more than 5 seconds to load, you're losing people who are visiting your site or potentially visiting your site. There's also the functions.php file. Okay, so WordPress uses the programming language PHP and MySQL as its database. So all the back-end coding, how it gets your posts from the server up to the screen, it uses PHP. Functions.php places miscellaneous PHP functions, code, and variables. It's considered a plugin file for your theme. Okay, so if you have any theme-specific code, you would want to put it in that file. Okay. I have here remember separation of concerns. Okay, so the wonderful, beautiful thing about WordPress is that it separates everything out for you. You have your content, which is your blog posts, your display, which is your theme, and your functionality, which is your plugins. Okay, so remember that when you're developing a theme. Okay, you don't want to tie something like content to a theme. So if you have a theme that has like a slider in it, like an image slider or a content slider, or some sort of other custom content type, you don't want to put that stuff in your theme, because if you ever change a theme, you lose that content. Okay, so that's another thing to keep in mind if you're downloading themes as well. If your theme is the theme you want to get is advertised as has all these custom post types and all these different kinds of sliders, that might be bad because you put all this work, maybe you put hours into adding content to that theme. If you ever want to change the design, you're going to have to re-input all of that content for the new theme. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind, even if you're not coding, but when you're downloading a theme. Okay, the theme should only affect the display. Effect? I'm not really sure. I think that's right. With an A?
It might be, but whatever.
Son of a gun. All right, it shouldn't affect content or functionality. Okay. The last line I have here uses actions and filters. Actions and filters are ways to modify WordPress on the fly. So say you click publish on a post and it automatically sends out a tweet. That is an action that's saying, when a post is published, send it to your Twitter account. Okay? Or if you want to automatically add a signature to the end of, like my friend Jen, she runs a blog with lookblog.com. She wanted her signature, like an image of her signature, added to the end of each post. That's done through a filter that says, hey, when this post is published, just like tack on this image at the bottom. Okay? Really cool way to do some things dynamically so that you don't have to do them manually. Okay? And my responsive web design tip here is use functions.php for server-side detection. You don't need to just do responsive web design in CSS. You can actually tell the server, hey, if you know they're using a mobile browser, send this instead of this because it's lighter, it's smaller, or it's more optimized for mobile. Okay, but that's a bit more technical. Okay, index.php. That is the backbone of WordPress themes. Okay. Anything that doesn't have its own template, which we'll talk about in a minute, falls back to index.php. So if you're developing a theme, you only really need two files, style.css, which defines the theme, and index.php, which is what displays the posts or any really content. Okay. I'm going to talk about the loop in a minute. The loop is incredibly important in WordPress, but don't remove the loop from this page. If you want to have a custom homepage, then create a page template, which again we'll talk about in a minute. I've dealt with themes that have modified index.php and removed the loop, and the entire site is broke, okay? So I'll reiterate this when we get to the loop, but that's something to keep in mind too. All right, then we have header and footer PHP. These are template files that are used throughout the theme so that you don't really need to repeat code, okay? Those functions are called get header and get footer. They should be at the top and bottom of every page. So you have index.php, you'll have get header, you'll have the loop, and then you'll have get footer. I know this is tough, since none of you said you could, to visualize this, but you know, if you're ever like poking around in a theme's code, hopefully this will look at least somewhat familiar to you. Okay. The WordPress hierarchy. So that doesn't look too bad. This is a huge. I was worried that it was going to look too small, but you can see this up at wphierarchy.com. All right. So I just said that any page that doesn't have, like any content that doesn't have its own template, drills down to index.php. However, you can have custom templates for everything. Like, say you have a post. Well, okay, how many of you were at the content talk this morning? I think his name was Michael. Highway 81 in District, right? So he does, he does interviews and stuff like that. If he wants to have a custom template for interviews and then a different custom template for press releases, he can do that easily using the WordPress hierarchy. Okay. So if you have like a recipe blog or a cooking blog and you have recipes, you can have a custom template for recipes. And then just a regular template for regular blog posts, okay? And you can do that at such a fine-grained level that you can actually have a custom template for single blog posts. So say you do a blog post that's nothing like any content you've ever done before. You can make a template and say, hey, this is only for this post, okay? Which is really cool because it gives you a really diverse way to present different content. It gives the user a really cool experience. So, the way template files work is WordPress has a sophisticated hierarchy, as we just saw. The only required files, again, are style.css and index.php, okay? And like I just said, you can have custom templates down in the single post type. So here's an example. A custom post type is like a custom content type, really. So in WordPress, you have posts and pages. How many of you use WordPress, are currently using WordPress? Okay, so you're poking around the WordPress admin, you see posts, pages, and a whole bunch of other things, right? Well, if you want to add to posts and pages, say you teach at the University of Scranton, and you have different classes. You can create a custom post type called classes, and have things like meeting time, location, title of the class, ID of the class, stuff like that, okay? And if you want to have a custom template for that, say you don't want to use like a blog post template, you can use single-classes.php that will automatically apply that template to your class's custom post type. But if you don't have that, it drills down to single.php, which handles any single post, okay? And again, if you don't have that, it'll drill down to index.php, okay? So as long as your WordPress theme has an index.php file, your content will display. It might not look pretty, but it'll be there for the user to access at least. Okay. And then page templates was something I alluded to earlier. Okay. The naming convention for this, if you're creating a theme, is page dash whatever. So if you have, well, first of all, if you're poking around in the WordPress admin, when you create a page, under page attributes, you'll see template, and then you'll see a list of those templates. Those are different ways to display pages. Okay. And then if you ever decide to poke around in a WordPress theme, the naming convention is generally, it'll start with the word page, okay? So if it's properly coded, just look for those pages and you can kind of see the nuts and bolts of how those work, okay? Now, if you want to have a custom post type, if you want to have a custom home page, I said don't modify index.php. What you should do is create a page template called home, so maybe page-home, okay? And then you see, that's what I do on my site. I have a template called home. That way I'm not modifying the core files. I'm creating a special template for the home page. Okay. And if you ever do want to get into theming, a lot of this is covered in my book or another book I wrote. You can check me out. Sorry, shameless plug. It's all on Casabona.org. Okay. The loop. Okay, I have the entire definition of the loop up here because the loop is what makes WordPress tick. Okay, the loop is used by WordPress to display each of your posts. Using the loop, WordPress processes each of the posts to be displayed on the current page and formats them according to how they match specified criteria with the loop tags. Okay, and then the rest is just HTML and PHP. Okay, so the loop is what actually displays your content. Okay. Essentially, the loop has PHP functions to make sure that you have a post to display and to display those posts, okay? And here I have some sample code, okay? So this is the stuff that you should not remove from index.php, okay? So I'm just saying, if there are posts for this particular template, display them, all right? And then I have a little print post information using template tags, all right? Otherwise, tell the user that there's no posts on this page. Now, what are template tags? Template tags are functions in WordPress designed to print information about the current post. Now, the current post could be a single post, a list of posts, classes, a single page. It's really any content in WordPress. And that's all based on the templates, okay? So if I go to Casabona.org, you'll see the home page, okay? That's the current post, okay? If you click on blog, you'll see a list of blog posts, right? That's the current post for that page. And if you click on events, you'll see the event page. That's the current post, okay? So it's really just the content that you keep in WordPress, okay? Some of the tags include the title, the time, the content itself, all right, the excerpt, which is just like a small snippet of your content, the category tags, the permalinks, etc. So, are there any questions about that before I hand it over to Phil? I'm getting some. If you have any questions about WordPress themes at all, how to find them or anything like that, feel free to ask that too. But in the meantime, well, if time permits, let's look at a live theme. But that's if time permits. I want to hand it over to Phil right now to talk about security.
Whoever's tweeting for the street team, stop. You're inflating Joe's ego. I'm sure as soon as he goes and looks at his phone, he's going to get a Twitter. Yes, I made fun. I'm sorry.
I get that.
I apologize. My dad's a pastor. I make very bad jokes.
Oh,
it's just the way it goes. I do.
Yeah.
All right, securing your WordPress site. Believe it or not, WordPress powers almost 19%. Well, it was 18.9% in August, so it's probably 19% now of the entire internet. And I forget what they check. It's like the top 10 million sites or something.
Yeah, it used to be the top million.
And then you're right, and they increased it to 10 million. So that's insane, because that makes it a really good target for hacking. If you can find a vulnerability in WordPress core or in a common plugin or in users using silly passwords, it's going to be a really easy thing to hack. And it's a lot of sites you can get into. I show this for two reasons. One, yeah, it's true, WordPress is secure. But it also makes my skin crawl a little bit, because if you just look at this picture and walk away from this presentation, you're going to get the wrong idea. So please nobody leave now. This came from an article in originally WP Daily, now owned by Torque.io. And they had some good points. The core code itself is secure, but there's a lot of other factors to consider. There's plugins, there's themes, there's the developers behind all those things, and then there's the users. All things that we need to keep in mind when we're talking about WordPress. And, yes, just like any program, there's going to be some problems in the code, but I'll tell you what, they are very good at sniffing those out and correcting them. And making improvements as time goes on. In WordPress 3.7, which is currently in beta, I have not installed yet, but I understand they have worked on automatic updates, which is really wonderful. That's probably one of the biggest reasons why WordPress sites get hacked. They're running code that's 3 years old. And so now they've got the ability to automatically update. So that you don't have to remember, okay, I got to go in, I got to check, once a month or hopefully more to see if I need to update things. And that is configurable. That's again one of those things for me that makes me a little, I like to have control over it, but for most users that's going to be a wonderful thing. And they have a better password meter to tell you if your password is secure. The one they had before kind of gave you false false hope that your password was a really secure password. Things like, this is a secure password with the E as a 3 and the A as an @ sign, it would say it was secure. But those are really common things, and they can prove that now. All right, so first thing I have to talk about when it comes to WordPress security is backup everything. If you saw my guest post 2 or 3 days ago on the NEPA BlogCon blog, it was on how to do backups. And you might say, your hosting provider does this, why do I have to worry about it?
Good question.
Yeah.
As far as the passwords are concerned, you're saying like the @ signs and
Yep.
things are common. Like how do you go about coming up with something that is a secure password?
Well, so not that using symbols is a bad thing, you should absolutely use symbols, but some of the really common word replacements, like password with the @ sign, or the @ sign through the A and a 1 at the end. You know, those are things that, I mean, well, they're more secure than just saying password, or more secure than 1, 2, 3, or your cat's name. They're starting to make their way into the dictionaries that the hackers use for cracking the passwords. So really, the longer the better, the more obscure the better. You know, and it doesn't really have to be necessarily complex if it's significantly long.
What about like a password randomizer? Like,
Password randomizers are really the best idea, and that's what I do personally. I use KeePass for storing all my passwords. Virtually all of my passwords are different, and at least half of them I have no idea what they are. So KeePass, K-E-P-A-S-S, is a wonderful free tool. It'll generate passwords for you. There's also all kinds of generators out there on the web. I tend to caution about, there's things like Dashlane and other browser extensions. What's that?
RoboForm?
Oh, I've heard good things about Google.
Okay, I haven't used that myself, but I've heard about
Is
it.
it good?
I've heard good things about it. I use Dashlane. I love Dashlane. Because, like, you keep passwords as well as, like, credit card information, stuff like that, and you can autofill things for you, too.
And some of those things make my skin crawl, like putting my credit card information into an application. Yeah, but it's better than having it in a text file on your desktop. I'm going to throw my dad under the bus on this one. He brought me his laptop last weekend and said, hey, there's something wrong with it. All right, fine, I'm looking into it. Dad, I might need to wipe this out. Is there anything I need to back up? Well, make sure you get the file called info on the desktop. Don't shoot me, it has my passwords in it. I may have cried a little bit. Don't do that, please. At least with things like KeePass and Dashlane, they're encrypted, so that's better. And the great thing about those applications is they'll fill in the passwords for you. So I go into my WordPress blog, and I bring up KeePass, I hit fill in the form, and it goes and fills in my username and password for me. So I don't have to remember what they are most of the time. All right, so how do I back up WordPress? Actually, I forgot. My hosting provider does that. Why should I? You don't want to be at the mercy of your hosting provider or anyone else for doing your backups. If something goes wrong and you have to go to your hosting provider, you're at their mercy for what they back up, when they back it up, and when they can get it back to you, and if they're going to charge you to get it back to you. So I like to avoid that. There's great services out there. Wordpress is one by Automatic. Automatic is the main company behind WordPress, started by Matt Mullenweg, who was the original developer, one of the original developers in WordPress. I forget how much it is. It is dirt cheap, though.
It's like $5 a month on our personal site.
Yeah, which, to be honest, is really dirt cheap for what you get. Then there's plugins for you to do it yourself. Backup Buddy is a paid premium plugin, and BackWP is my personal favorite, A, because it's free and I'm cheap, I'm sorry. But it also lets me back up. Not only can I save the backups locally onto my server, but I can also put them off to another FTP server or to Dropbox or something like that. So if something ever happened to the server that my website's on, I've got my backup somewhere else, which is a really good thing. And then the good old-fashioned license on a systems administrator, dumping the database to a file and zipping up all of the web files and the database file. And all of these are covered in my guest post on NEPABlogCon.com. All right, so backup best practices. Create a backup schedule that makes sense for your site. If you're updating content on your site once a week or once a month, you probably don't need to have backups every day. If you're getting a lot of activity on your site, even if you are only posting to it once a week, but you're getting comments on it every day, you probably want to back it up daily. So think about those things when you create a backup plan. get an offsite copy. Like I said, if that server that it's on goes down, I mean, hopefully DreamHost or WP Engine or whoever else has backups for you, but get an offsite copy so that you know things are good. And test your backups. That gets a little weird sometimes. Restoring to a live site, you have to sometimes think about how you test your backups. Personally, I go into the files and look at the files of the database, make sure the database is actually backing up. But if you take a backup right now and you restore it 5 minutes later, that way you're not going to lose any data. So, however, the bad thing about that is you may have just wiped out your site if your backup was bad. So, there are other ways around that, and actually I'm thinking about it. I'm going to write a blog post about that. So keep an eye on Wordpress. Secure the server to the extent that you can. I run my own server, so I can do that to a great extent. But if you're using DreamHost or any other hosting provider, you only have so many options. However, there's a lot of things, like I said, that the user is responsible for. Use strong passwords. That's your FTP password, your SSH password if they give you SSH. Oftentimes those are the same passwords. And your control panel password. So the password you use to log into panel or whatever it is, panel.dreamhost.com or the GoDaddy administration page or whatever else. Make sure all those passwords are significantly complex because if someone can figure out those passwords, they can, if they figure out your control panel password, they can set your FTP password and then they can get into your files and they've now owned your site. Use what's called SFTP instead of FTP. Most hosting providers that I've seen do offer SFTP. I don't think I've come across one yet that doesn't. And it's basically just an encrypted form of the file transfer protocol. In many cases, you may never have to use FTP or SFTP because a lot of the hosting providers have one-click installs and things, so you may not have to transfer files to your server. But if you do, I advise using SFTP because that way everything is encrypted. Your password's encrypted, going over the internet, so there's no chance that, or very little chance that will be discovered. Understand file permissions for the most part. Probably for 98% of the cases, you wouldn't need to worry about this as the host would take care of it. But if you are uploading a file, you may have the ability to change the permissions on it. What 777 here means is anyone can do anything with that file. The first 7 is me, the user. The second 7 is my group, which can mean different things depending on what server we're talking about. And the third 7 is anyone. So, and the 7s mean all permissions. So anyone can do anything with this file. They can read it, they can delete it, they can modify it, they can do whatever. I advise to just stay away from changing file permissions in general. Install an SSL certificate. If your host gives you the option to do this, oftentimes it's a couple of bucks a month, and it will protect your WordPress login where you put in your admin username and password, so that it's encrypted, again, going over the wire so that it can't be sniffed out. And I have an interesting slide later on about what can happen if you don't use an SSL certificate for your login page. So securing core. Like I said, WordPress core, the code is fairly secure, but there's some additional things that you can do. First thing is secure the login process. Believe it or not, out of the box, the password is sent over the internet in plain text. So I sit at my computer, I type in my password, it goes out into the bits over the wires, and some smart user, some smart user can capture that data and look and say, hey, Joe's password is 123456. So that's why we want to use SSL certificates.
You have to change my password now.
Yeah, you probably should. Don't use the admin password. Back in April, there was a botnet of over 90,000 different computers, I believe, that was used to attack WordPress sites. It's a very valuable target. I mean, you've got sites like the CNN blogs, New York Times, all kinds of really high-profile sites that use WordPress. And then, the whole way down to, I'm running my blog just because I feel like it. There's a lot of different people using WordPress, and this botnet was targeting WordPress sites, and they were primarily using the username admin because You know what? Chances are most people have used admin. It used to be the default username when you installed WordPress was admin. They did change that where you got to choose, and that's probably been 3 years now when they made that change. You get to choose your username when you first do the install. There's a lot of people who still put in admin by default. I beg you not to do that. Even if you do something as crazy as not admin, just don't make it admin. Because then, I mean, half the battle is won at that point. Then they just have to guess your password. Stronger authentication. So use strong passwords. There is a plugin called Force Strong Passwords that will force you to use a strong password. As I mentioned before, WordPress has that little meter that says, is this a strong password or a weak password? That's nice, but it doesn't actually make you have a strong password. This plugin will make you have a strong password before it lets you change it. Limit the number of bad logins. So by default, I can pound away at a WordPress login page endlessly and just keep trying hundreds and hundreds, thousands of different passwords without it trying to stop me. The logon lockdown, and there's other ones, limit logon something, I can't, limit logon attempts. There's a couple of them, and it's built into some other security tools. Gives you the option to say, okay, if somebody enters the password wrong 3 times, it locks them out for an hour, and different options like that. So that's a good one to have. Because that's really going to deter those people that are just trying to nail away at it with a dictionary tactic at your password, because they're only going to get 3 shots, and they got to wait an hour and come back. They're probably not going to come back. Use multi-factor authentication. It depends how paranoid you are. I actually use this. Google Authenticator is a great one. The Google, okay, that's right. Where you install an app on your phone, and so when you go to your site, you have to put in your username, your password, and then a 6-digit code that you have to get from your phone. That changes every 30 or 60 seconds. So both Google Authenticator and Duo 2-factor authentication will do that. The Google one is free. Duo, I believe, has a free option, but also has some paid options as well. As I said before, always use SSL encryption for logging for some personal info. Like I said, most hosting providers offer it for $1 or $2 a month. They give you a real SSL cert for your domain so that you don't get any warnings when you go to the secure version of the page. Personally, I use a free SSL cert that gives a warning because I don't care, because the warning just means that this wasn't, basically the person didn't pay money for this certificate. So it wasn't generated by a trusted provider, that kind of thing. Basically, I generated my own certificate just so that I can use encryption. The certificate itself just says, can you trust this server or not, basically.
Do you have to pay for that, or is there a free services that you can use for that?
To generate SSL certs, there are some free services out there. They are completely escaping me at the moment. There are some that offer them free for like nonprofits and schools and things. There are some that offer them free for anyone. Some of the free ones do not, basically they'll throw warnings. But if you don't care about that, like I said, I don't care about that in most cases. Go right ahead and use them. For myself, I actually generate my own, but again, I'm a server administrator, so that's right in my alley. Already looked at Joe's password. Only give users the access they need. This means YouTube. On my blog, I have 2 accounts. My super secret admin account, which is really hard to guess, yeah, right? It's not admin.
Literally not admin.
No. Maybe. No, it's not. And then, which is the administrator account for the site, and then I have my account. My account is just an author. That's all I can do. All I can do is write posts and publish posts. That's it. And that's the account I use 99% of the time. Because I don't need to log in every day and change the theme around or move my menus or any of that kind of stuff. But when I do, I have that extra account. And actually, the admin account is the only one, I shouldn't say this out loud, but that's the only one I use the Google Authenticator on. Because that's my really... Have to log in as admin to do that, yeah. So that's the one thing, I don't see my plugin updates. I actually have other tools that I get notified if I have updates to do. But if you are just logging as an author account on a regular basis, you wouldn't see at the top, you have updates to install. So you would want to log in as the admin account. I'm going to say once a week is my preference, just to see if there's, because you have theme updates, plugin updates, or WordPress core updates as well. Don't let your database be predictable. Change the database table prefix. There's a lot of controversy about whether this matters, but to me, it's just one of those things that if it's one little thing I can do to possibly make it more secure, that's great. And I believe I have, at the end of the resources, I have a link to how to do this. Also, when you first install WordPress, if you're doing a manual install and not one of the one-click installers, it'll ask you what you want the prefix to be. By default, it's WP underscore. I usually just change that to some random numbers and letters underscore, and then move on my merry way. And that way, it's harder for hackers to guess, your database information. By default, all WordPress user database tables are WP underscore users. So just, making things a little more difficult. Plugins, themes, and updates. Only use trusted sources. Do me a favor, never, ever do this. Do not Google free WordPress themes and install them. WPMU.org did a little survey, or not, I guess did a little test. They searched for this in Google, and only one was reputable, and that was WordPress.org/extend/themes. All the rest had some form of malware or really bad code and things that you really don't want on your site. Keep core plugins and themes up to date. So when you log in as your admin account once a week, and you see, across the top, WordPress has updates, or you see on the left-hand side, I think under the very top item, it will say updates 3. There might be 2 plugins and a theme update. Please do those updates. I beg you, do those in a timely fashion. Don't say, oh, I got to go and test those, and 6 months later, finally come back to it. There's some great services, plugins, and tools out there. Sakuri, I plug these guys every chance I get. They have a great service. They have several things, actually. One is a free tool where you can go and scan your site manually. You go to their sites, sakuri.net, and I also have a link to that in the resources slides. And you can just plug in your URL, and it'll scan your site and look for some really common things. See if you're on any blacklists, and if there's any warning flags, like, oh, hey, your WordPress is 2 years out of date. Go fix that. They also have a monitoring service that will proactively monitor all that kind of stuff for you, and there's a little tool you can actually install on your server that will help them do that, and it works to make sure that there's no hacked files and things like that. And they also do site cleanup if your site is hacked. And the great thing about that is you don't have to have a plan with them before your site's hacked. You can go to them going, oh my God, my site's been hacked. What the heck do I do? Why did this happen to me? The world is falling. I actually did a little bit of work with these guys, and yes, people do that. And they'll say, no problem. Give us the credentials to your site. You can trust them, believe me. They're only going to do good things for you. Change your credentials afterwards. And they will do everything they can to clean up your site. And now, you're basically at that point, you're paying for a year of service. So if something happens to your site again, if it gets reinfected or they didn't get everything cleaned up for whatever reason, because these things can be tricky, they'll go back in and they'll do it all over again for you. And they learn from these things, and they do all kinds of interesting analytics and create really sophisticated tools based on the things that they see out there in the wild. Let's see, Better WP Security is actually not one that I have used. That and WordFence are 2 plugins that add additional security functionality to your sites. Things like limiting the login attempts. WordFence actually adds in an application firewall that's going to block out some known bad things. So these are some good things to look for. Updates and management. These are 3 services that you can use. These are actually ones that I use to keep myself notified, because I have several sites out there, both for myself and for clients. So I can easily manage updates across all those sites for each tool. I actually use Managed WP and Infinite WP right now. WP Remote is not one I have used. I've heard excellent things, though, and I believe they just released a new version within the past month, if I'm not mistaken. Basically, you install a plugin on the sites you want to monitor, and it'll report back to Managed WP, to any of these, and just say, okay, there's updates backups directly through these. Managed WP is a service that you pay for. Infinite WP is something you actually install on your server to do that. And there's both free options and paid options with Infinite WP. Basically, the updates are free. A couple other things. I think doing basic backups is free. But then adding in additional options like sending those backups to Dropbox and things, that costs a little extra. And similar with WP Remote now as well. Use a good hosting provider. Can't stress this enough. I mean, if your hosting provider does bad things, then bad things are going to happen to you. So if they don't pay attention to some of the things we've talked about, like especially the file permissions, if they make it so that Casabona.org sitting right alongside filler.com, Joe Casabona decides to go browse into my files and delete things, well, if they've made it so that he can do it, I can only throw so many things at him. It's not entirely his fault because my host let him do it.
That's happened on hosting providers too.
Yeah.
Like there have been big issues with certain ones.
Yeah. And there are some really good ones out there. Sometimes they're mistakes. Sometimes, sometimes it's pure negligence, which is what you really hope to avoid. And as far as hosting, people always ask me after these kind of talks, what do you recommend? That's a tough question. See me afterwards if you have questions about hosting providers. But not everyone has their own experiences. I've had some bad experiences and some good experiences with different ones, and I know people who have had the opposite on those same ones. So, as I said, I actually run my own web server at this point just to get away from most of that. Keep yourself secure too. So, just some tidbits for yourself. If your computer is compromised, and that's the computer where you're putting in your WordPress password every day, they could have your WordPress password. So make sure your computer is up to date. Install operating system and application updates. Run antivirus software. Again, use encrypted protocols, HTTPS and SFTP. And use strong passwords for everything. And I beg you, use different passwords. Even if they're just a little bit different, just make them different. Again, tools like KeePass, Dashlane, they really help out with stuff like this. I again had to cry. Thankfully it wasn't my father this time, but a good friend of mine posted on Facebook yesterday complaining about his Xbox account or something. I don't understand why this password isn't working. It's the same password I use for everything. And I cried. And then I probably educated him, and hopefully he won't do anything, I know, but hopefully he will. Because again, if you use that same password, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on every site, it's only as strong as the weakest link. So Hotmail gets compromised, and you've used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you use the same email, you use your Hotmail email address for your WordPress site, they now have the password for your WordPress site, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or whatever you need. So use different passwords. It's going to help you out in the long run. And keep an ear to the WordPress community. Everything is always changing. You've got the updates coming out, and I'm probably running way over time here. No, not too bad. These are a couple. If you go to NEPAWP.com, there's a resources link at the top, and we have links to various blogs, podcasts. I don't think we have Twitter accounts up there, but that would be a good one to put up. And keep an eye on that. We're going to regularly update that with various news sources. And even if you just follow some of the big ones, for security, Securi is a good one. WPSecure.net is one I actually just found out about. They talk a lot about when there's different popular themes and plugins that have issues or really important updates that come out. If you don't use one of the other services I talked about, Managed WP or Infinite WP or WP Remote, there's the WP Updates Notifier plugin, which I was just playing around with a few days ago, and that will email you to let you know that you have updates you need to install. So if you're not logging in on a regular basis with your admin account, you can still find out. Questions, comments, statements of disgust, things you want to throw at me?
You do us.
Us, that's right. Please throw things at Joe. I'll take the questions and comments. Again, we run the Northeast PA WordPress meetup. We have a social meetup coming up on the 24th. I think it's a Thursday that we're actually going to do somewhere here in Wilkes-Barre. I think it sounds like we're not totally decided yet. Right now we have it advertised as at the Arena Bar and Grill. But keep an eye on our website, NEPAWP.com, and our Twitter is just at NEPAWP, again, we're the original. And then I think in November, I'm talking.
Yeah, you're talking.
I'm talking about developing locally on your computer.
I've heard you talking.
In December?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Gee, I don't know what that could be. So again, keep an eye on our website. We're also on meetup.com. That's where we do all of our RSVPs and everything. Meetup.com/guess what? NEPAWP. And then I have a whole bunch of resources here, and I understand that the slides are going to be sent out or available to people.
Yeah, I
So.
can make them available to
Okay.
everybody. We'll post the links on our blog.
Okay, or if you go to, at least for mine, if you want to get mine today, if you don't send an email, filler.com, and I have a link at the top that I forget what it's called, I think presentations, and there will be a link to the slides there. So, Joe, anything else you want to ask?
No, any questions, comments, concerns about this universe or anything in general? Yes.
Install WordPress on your website to allow bloggers to come and express what your website's about. None of it's okay. And you do all the things that you recommended that are security. When you're setting it up, you want everybody when they come there to use the blog that looks like it's like, say, the same header. Okay. Is there anything you've heard so far that sounds like it's not safe or it's not secure, or is there a better way? Because when you click on, right now it's just not I can't go there on the front end. I can only go there in the back end, knowing it's like blog/blog.
Okay.
All right, because she has not, this is not mine, but she wants me to help her. So she wants to use the same header for everybody. So whoever goes there, they're going to create the blog right there.
Okay, so it sounds like she's using a multi-site install with the option enabled to register blogs for anyone in the world, which I've always wondered about that option, but
Well, what
but
you
there's
do,
valid.
I'm going to become admin
Okay.
because I'm going to look at what they wrote and say, yes, we'll publish that and no, we won't.
Okay, so all right, so it makes them contributors, so they can automatically
Yes.
publish them.
So, but she still needs to do all that safety. It sounds like that you're
Sure.
recommending.
Yes, I mean, absolutely. I mean, no matter who's blogging, you definitely want to do all this safety. And as far as, the registering of accounts, it definitely scrutinize those and make sure that they're people you know or people you want to be blogging on your site. And it sounds like so far they're going the right route with making sure they're contributors, without the ability to publish things, without, they have to go through you to actually show up on the site. So that's all good. I would strongly stress backups, especially with having user-generated content. Where, with me, I write on my blog posts, I usually have them saved in a Word document on my computer, so if my stuff goes up, I have to store it. But, if I have everyone in this room contributing to my blog, I'm not necessarily going to have all that, so you have to have a backup in order to get all the information back. And I would say just making sure you closely scrutinize whatever is being published, making sure that if they put any links in, they're not going to potentially bad places. That kind of thing.
And
So-
thank you, and Joe, I wanted to make this clear. I noticed when I was talking to him, I didn't. So what you did was very helpful. What she did
Yeah.
was she writes code.
Okay.
Okay, just all of that for many years. So what she did was she took everything that she could possibly take from WordPress, and so it'll actually be a WordPress looking blog. But when you click on what I'm doing, and it takes me back to WordPress in order to customize it.
Gotcha. Okay, so it sounds like your original question was, how do you get all the blogs to have the same header? Is that right?
Yes, and also it's just a matter, he answered it.
Okay.
It's a matter of, I'm wondering if this is going to work and is it secure? And of course, doing all those other things are going to make it secure.
Yeah, okay. So, looks like I misinterpreted.
Is it going to work other than, it's the individual
Right,
personality that
yeah.
did it as well.
Yeah, so if there is a multi-site install, they can all use the same theme, like have the same theme automatically applied.
And there is a plugin out there for setting the defaults for multi-site.
Right.
Setting the default theme.
She wants to create links to share,
Okay,
allow them to do the same thing,
gotcha,
to share the blog.
gotcha.
Now, does WordPress provide?
Yeah, there's a lot of really great, like sharing plugins and pretty URL printers out there, like for WordPress. WordPress has like built-in permalinks installed. So you go to like WordPress settings, permalinks, and then you can make nice looking URLs to share. And then there's a lot of really cool plugins. I use Social, so it'll automatically share it to Twitter and Facebook. And then there's, what's that big one with all the buttons?
Add this, share this.
Sociable. Add this. Yeah. There's add this, share this, and then there's sociable. They're all like social media buttons too. So there are a lot of really great tools out there.
Thank you.
Yes.
Spam blocking. What do you recommend?
Okay, so the question was, what spam blocker do you recommend?
Any recommendations?
Akismet is the one that comes installed automatically. It comes installed automatically with WordPress. It's not enabled. So if you go to plugins, you can enable it there. That's made by Automatic. They maintain tons of blacklisting and stuff like that. So that's pretty much the de facto
Yeah.
plugin for that.
I was using something else for a while. I'm trying to remember what it was called. Anti-Spam Bee, which was okay, but I'll tell you what, I switched over to Akismet and I noticed the drop the first day. It used to be I would get a couple emails with comments every day, and now I might get one a month. And my site's pretty low traffic, so for larger sites that would probably be much more drastic.
If you do notice a domain, like a specific domain giving you trouble, you could also go to settings discussion in the WordPress admin, and there's like a blacklist area, so you can actually manually blacklist domains as well. So like if you have like a competitor who's like spamming your website, yes, yeah. So if you have like a competitor who's like spamming your website or something, blacklist them. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there like a known list or like a previous source you could go to know what plugins are like the ones to avoid? You know what I mean? Like
We had this question in the last meetup.
so many times.
Yep.
It's funny.
We actually had the question at the last meetup.
So the question is there a known list of bad plugins? And yeah.
Currently, not that I'm aware of. The WP Secure, I haven't actually delved too far into WPSecure.net. I was basically browsing just their newsfeed. They may have something. I'll be curious to look at that. If they do, I'll of course post it to our website resources. Really the best thing I've done so far is really just looking at the reviews through the plugin repository. I can't tell you any plugin that I've gotten that wasn't through the repository. But there are some great plugin makers, like I mentioned, Backup Buddy. They're absolutely reputable. Code Canyon is another good one. But just looking at the reviews, and even just doing a Google search, name a plugin review and see what people out there say. Of course, trying to make sure that the reviews themselves are somewhat reputable. If you can find people in the WordPress community saying good things about them, that's always a plus. It's kind of a feel it out, whatever doesn't give you a really bad gut instinct. And install it on a test site first if you can. That's really the best thing I can say at this point. I know you're jotting down an idea to create this list, aren't you? Yes.
Can you trust all the WordPress plugins?
Well, so that is a very good question. For the most part, maybe. In general, yes, there is a plugin review team. However, I've written a plugin. I can't really boast about it because it's literally one line of code. It actually took me longer to figure out how to submit it than it took me to write it. But they only do, currently, they only do a real strong review on that first submission. So they'll look at your plugin, make sure that it does something legitimate, make sure the code is good, and they'll approve you and publish it to the repository. So far as I can tell, on subsequent updates, I've gone in and really only changed things in the readme because my one line of code has never changed. They haven't done any further review now. That may be because my other files haven't changed, but from everything I can tell, they don't really scrutinize them on the subsequent ones. And where that's bitten them in the past is when some plugins have changed hands. So maybe I started writing it, and then I said, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. I gave it to Joe, and then Joe decided to do bad stuff.
Someone could screw it up.
Exactly. So, I mean, really, again, watching the reviews, underneath the reviews in the repository, there is the support forum. That's another good thing to just browse through. And that tells you other things, like is the developer, responsive to problems? Is he, making updates to this on a regular basis, or is it, I'm going to install this today and find out that he's never updating it again and have to move on to something else? So right now, I think that's really the best.
Yeah, I mean, like what I would recommend is probably, if it's not like it's a security update, like sometimes it'll be like big security breach, install this. If it's not something like that, wait a day or so, see what people are saying about it. Otherwise, have a test install that you might try out first. So copy your site to, whatever.com/test, and install it there. And if nothing breaks horribly, then you're probably good to go. The WordPress team is also really responsive about vulnerabilities like that. So if something crops up, they'll remove it from the repository. Can they remove it?
They can, they can remove it from the repository, but they cannot remove it from your site.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's another good place where it's good to be subscribed to. Like, you go to WordPress.org and subscribe for the various notifications they have. If there's a really big one, they'll let you know. But again, some of these sites like wpsecure.net, Sucuri, and some of the other ones, and again, our resources page on NEPA WP. The WordPress news sites will light up when things happen with these plugins. I can't remember which plugin it was, but within the past 6 months, there was one like that I mentioned that changed hands, and the new person injected some bad code and was serving them ads. And within minutes of them publishing that, it was all over the WordPress news sites. So, unfortunately, it's one more thing for you to check on. At least But I would say even you don't have to keep an eye on it every day like we do, because I think this is really our livelihood outside of our empire. But if you see there's an update, go check out the news site, see if you see anything weird about it. Do a quick Google search. WP Security 3.1 review, and see if anybody has anything bad to say about it. Or hell, throw us a question at nepawp.com.